Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we at the twilight's last gleaming
to the flag of the United States of America.
Broad stripes and bright stars through the
A huge cheer, then singing as the decision reaches the crowd out front.
You have no clue what the hell it feels like to be black in this country.
Watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets
Pope Francis was known for reaching out to marginalized communities.
So what do you think of a Muslim and a Jewish guy walking together?
I think it's great.
It's great?
I think we get along. It's great.
Oh, say does that star
Well, this is a perfect opportunity for you to try some active listening.
yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
So what I'd like to do is to start off with Dr. J. You have been in politics, and then you got more into spirituality in your search, and he's also royalty of an African tribe. I think if you watched, what was that woman movie?
The Woman King.
The Woman King. So he's from that tribe, and he's a
King.
prince. Okay, so sorry. Ignorance, you see? So the whole thing is that, you've got people here who have been really in the trenches of really understanding various ways that we think as people. What I'd like to ask you, Jay, right now is, when you look at where we are as a nation, what is it that we have done to get to a place where what I am witnessing is the fight between two polarizing energies? It's as if, it's like, for me, I fight to be a better person. And sometimes it's not easy that I wake up being my best self. And I feel like America's going through a fight to be their better, like a better nation. How do you think we got here? How do you think we got into this place?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for hosting this higher dialogue. It's important that we have these type of dialogues. And notice I use the word higher dialogue. I think being a product of I'm going to date myself, the 60s and the 70s, there was a higher dialogue in America at that time about the nation that we wanted to be, the people that we wanted to be. And then I think as time progressed and we moved on, that we moved away from that higher dialogue to a dialogue of enemy thinking and division. And we fell short of the search for common ground where the discourse can be about who has the best vision for ushering in the kingdom of God, the beloved community of Martin Luther King. We moved away from that to these hard positions of blue versus red, gay versus straight, black versus white, Jew versus Muslim, rich versus poor. And we haven't fallen back to a position where we can look and see, what is the vision for a common ground? How can we find it? How can we have a higher dialogue? Inner dialogue first, that's born of connecting with the divine intelligence and bringing that dialogue out to the world. And then you have these values that you went in and accessed about your vision based on the questions of, what do you think about God? Where do you stand? What do you see from where you stand? If you do that type of reflection and have that type of inner dialogue, then you can come out with the higher values that you want to see government, the output of government. So the output of government should only concern ordering society and helping people to achieve their higher self, their goals, bring their gifts out to the world, and build community. The same as religion. The government just gives it a structure from which it can manifest and operate.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Zainab, coming from Iraq and having gone through a revolution in your country and your leader being basically murdered and also I would say it wasn't a very respectful departure. Let's put it that way. But you left your country where there was so much uprising. Are you feeling that same energy now? And does it scare you what you're witnessing now in the United States?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Sister Jenna. That's a very deep question. Takes me back to many years ago when I was part of such a violence and certain future at that then. When you are in the midst of it, you feel you want to give something, you want to help in a way that you see it right. But at that point, everything is mixed up, the right and wrong, violence and peace. And you try to be on one side that you can guarantee a decent, respectful, and life with dignity. Dignity is very important. When you feel humiliated by a person or a leader or a dictator, your life becomes meaningless. You want something, you want to just live just like any ordinary person. You want to wake up in the morning, peacefully start your day, go do your work, come back home, and you feel that you have a certain prosperous future, and you have safety and security in the country or the place you are living in. But that was not the case in my situation, and I grew up in very unsafe community. So when I came to the United States, I felt this is home when I feel safe and secure. Nothing will threaten my safety and security, myself, my children, my family. But then things unfold, and as we go along, things start happening, and I think this is life. So when 9/11 happened, I felt the threat I left behind is following me here. And that was just a déjà vu to what happened many years earlier and back home. And that point changed my life, because I flee the uncertainty, I flee the unsafety, insecurity, violence, to go back, to come to a place where I feel it is safe. At this point, I felt, no, there is no place in the world is safe, but I am in a better position when I was a teenager back then. But now I am an adult, and I have learned, I have went to college, and I have a family I'm responsible about. And I have to work on these things to make life better, not only for my children, but for my neighbors, for my country, the U.S., and for all other good human beings that they want to see. So when I see what's happening now with the election and the different voices, the different background, and all of these things are mixed together, it's good to have the right to cast your voice, and my voice and my vote not necessarily have to be the same as yours, but what unites us is we are a human being. We are under one blue sky. And how can we spread peace, love, and do not judge each other based on our choices? Because what I see probably is different than what you see. my beliefs, gives my background and my experience is different than your experience is different than your life. So we always, we reflect inside us based on the experiences that we went through.
Thank you so much. Reverend Sylvia, you've been in service for over 30 years as a minister of a church, and you've built a very thriving community in Washington, D.C. You have served the gay, straight, tall, short, Democrat, Republicans, rich, poor. It has never mattered to you who comes into your church or who you're in service to. You're witnessing a particular time where families and people are breaking apart. Friends that you know are speaking things that are surprising you. How do you manage staying neutral and still be very benevolent in your feelings, even if when you hear them sharing ideas about what's going on right now in the world seems so far-fetched that you kind of question, what is it that they're watching or listening to? They just seem different. You were once so close to them, you were friends, you pastored them, but the way that they speak is not very peaceful about the other person. How are you handling the sort of a negativity that people are expressing right now during this political climate?
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for being here as well. That's a powerful question because it's a personal one. I've had that experience with a good friend, who I just kind of asked, "Oh, have you voted yet?" And, she told me she hadn't voted because she was still in question and about the various sides. And I immediately went to, what do you mean you're in question? How could you question? It seems to me to be a very clear decision. And this is a person who I've loved, I value, who's been who's intelligent, I admire. And so it's so shocking to me that there would even be any hesitation. And what that did for me is it caused me to go into myself and question myself, because the thought ran across my mind, who is this person? And can I remain friends with them? Can I be friends with this individual? And it was juxtaposed to the thought, but I love this person. I know their values. We've traveled the road of life in certain instances. And so what it did for me is to stop and to look at my own self and to question where my own values were and what am I judging, and is it possible for people who value each other to be able to disagree or to be on opposite ends of the spectrum? And I want to say this, that what I'm feeling is that everything that is happening right now, we all know it's a part of the divine plan, divine purpose. But I see all conflict and disagreement as a call for healing, and that the energy that we've witnessed today is not different from the energy we witnessed perhaps at the start of this country. It's not different from the instances that we see, perhaps what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening on the African continent, what's happening across. And I think that when we do not take the opportunity to really see what is crying out to be healed, and we repress it, eventually it is going to come up again. And so we're seeing this cycle of unhealed, unresolved abilities to love one another and to accept our differences. And within our own particular country, until we can stop and look at the hard questions, to answer the hard questions, and to really allow ourselves to go into the areas that frighten us, which means, how can I see you? What do I see in you that might be different from me? And I might not want to look at that, or I might not want to address that. But until we are willing to really heal at a deeper level and not be afraid to heal, and the process, because healing is messy sometimes, right? It's not always pretty, it's messy. So I think this is a great opportunity the stuff is rising once again, and we can either look at it and heal it, or we can sort of temper it and let it settle down again until the next time. So I'm committed to looking at it and starting with myself.
Oh, I love that. Isn't that amazing? Can we continue on that healing journey? Is that why in this election we're all feeling so anxious? There's a feeling where you're wanting to take one side over the other, and you get so ugly when you even take the other side, and you're not realizing you're becoming like what you're talking against. So what is that feeling that we're all feeling, Dr. J, where we feel so angry or upset? I have counseled hundreds of people who have either gotten divorced because of this election. I'm serious. I've had people in organizations that are supposed to be value-based who no longer like each other within the organization because they're value-based, because of who they're selecting. And it's been something so deep. The pain is so deep. Can we talk about that? What is this feeling that is going on inside of us that as a nation we need to heal? And Zainab, I'll pass it on to you too.
Well, I see it as a crisis of institutions. Jimmy Carter first spoke about this, that America, when he was president, was going through a period or an era where we no longer had faith in our institutions, that our institutions have not served us well, be it religion, education, coming out of the 60s and into the 70s, corporate responsibilities. I was raised in Camden, New Jersey, and we used to go down to the Delaware River, the Monsanto Chemical Company yard, and we would pick up big globs of blue and green stuff and throw it in each other's faces. It never occurred to us that our corporate citizen, a major employer in our town, would put something harmful in our neighborhood. And kids died from horrible cancers in my neighborhood. And so moving out of the 60s and 70s, all of our institutions failed us. This was the subject of most public opinion polling. But we're feeling that same crisis of institution now, a crisis of, challenging and questioning our institutions. We're also feeling the results of a long-term stretch of enemy thinking. If you don't have sex like I have sex, you don't pray like I pray, you don't earn your money the way I earn my money, you don't live where I live, you're my enemy, and our differences divide us. And also you have to look at the role of media. When I was growing up, we had 3 channels. I'm old. There was ABC, we had Chet Huntley and David Brinkley, Walter Cronkite, and they were responsible journalists. They reported the news. Now, for every faction, there's a news station. So if you don't like the news or what's being reported that is actually real, you can find a station or a media outlet that affirms your belief. Create your own station. So we have a responsibility to affect and bring about the world that we want to see, to take our values that we go in and reflect and pray on. Sister Jenna and I were talking, in prayer, going to the polls is a prayer. It's born of the inner dialogue that you had about the world that you want to see. And then you go to the polls in a form of civic responsibility to help bring about that world that you want to see. So what we're experiencing now in this era of enemy thinking is a deep mistrust of the other and othering everybody. But you can't pursue a path of peace and walk that path with bigotry, divisiveness, and sowing tension between groups and people. That means does not justify the ends of the peace that you want to see. The path to peace, you walk the road to peace, you achieve peace.
Well, beautiful.
Doesn't the mistrust begin with something that I've also done against my own truth? That as a vibrational frequency, I'm attracting some level of mistrust outside of me too. I'm just saying that I live a life of trust where I'll walk into a dark room. I know I'm going to be fine.
But if I'm scared that something's going to happen to me because it's been happening to me, when I walk into the room, I'm not going to trust that I'm going to be fine. So even if I'm not trusting in my institutions, do I have a part to play in that? Did I also break my own self-trust that now I'm seeing what it looks like on the outside? Because one of my things I want to bring to the table is our internal responsibility. How we have treated ourselves will reveal itself on the outside as well. And I think that our country going through what it's going through is a sign of what we're going through in here consciously as people. This is my thought. And so I can wait for my government or my institution to repair itself. And if it repairs itself, but I haven't repaired me, do I not just create the same thing all over again? So I'm just wondering that, is this a big part too that we have to consider as Americans? How do we build back our self-trust in order to govern our country better than it was before? See, anyone, Jay, anyone?
That's a great question. I think building that trust among ourselves, our communities first, is reflecting on the government as well. Because the most important element in the election are the people, are our communities. I don't think any of the candidates are more important than us as citizens of this country. I think we are the one who makes the decision. Both or 3 or 4 candidates in this election are looking at us, waiting for us. So our trust, the trust in ourselves, in our community, the trust in the differences that we have, which makes this country so different than other parts of the world, is the respect, the diversity, the different background, different religion, different faith, different ethnicities. That's what makes it great. And each one of us built this country based on what we have brought with us. Even if we were born here and our parents or great-grandparents are born here, we have something that we contributed to that society. So I think building that trust among our community, among ourselves, is the most important thing, because this is what's going to emerge to the surface, to have that strong bond between the government and the system that we have in this country and ourselves and our communities.
The thought is that for me, peace, while it's a state of being, we can define it as an inner state of being, but it is also a choice. And we have to be willing to want to engage in peaceful dialogue, interactions with the other. We have to want to invite everybody, as Kamala said, to the table, to have a seat at the table. But if I don't want to engage, or I'm not willing to honor you or to have you come into the room and sit at the table and let's dialogue, then peace will not happen. So for me, each individual not only has to make the inner choice for their own individual lives for peace, but there has to be a willingness to engage in the activity of peace with the broader community or with the other. If I don't want to have peace with you and refuse to engage, then we won't have it. There has to be a willingness to come to the table together.
How many of you have ever been in a conversation or community where something is said and it cuts against your core beliefs and you didn't speak up? See, this is the problem right here. Sometimes we're not honest with ourselves about what we believe.
But sometimes people get angry with you when you do speak up. That's the thing,
Called being brave.
I was at a retreat in New York, and they almost hung me when I said, I don't believe in that. And I was at a retreat.
Well, where would we be without the prophets and the great statesmen and women if they didn't speak up? I'm going to say something in public that pains me to say this, but George Bush said 1,000 points of light. That, I'll put it for the way the kids can understand. You ever saw that movie, Bill and Ted's Adventure? Be excellent where you are. Be you where you are. Hold your values. Hold to your values and your higher ideals where you are, and be honest with yourself. When I worked on Capitol Hill, I was writing a paper for my boss, and it was beautiful. I'm patting myself on the back like, Jay, this is really good. You did a good job on this. I mean, I would vote for this position. I went home and laid down at night, basking in, because I heard my words repeated on the floor of the house. And I said to myself, I don't believe that. And here I am, working for somebody that I basically don't believe in his core values and vision of where he wanted America to go. Did I resign? I mean, I waited until I got another job, but I didn't. I didn't get up and walk out of the door right away, but I should have. Howard Thurman talks about stretching, and that there's a point in time when you have to enter into a dialogue with yourself or somebody else, and you face the point where you're being stretched, where you can no longer believe what you believe and hide behind your position. That's called conversion. Every day of our lives, we have to risk being converted to a different point of view, a different thought process, a different policy, a different political party, a different candidate. But sometimes the differences are so stark that you have to hold fast to your belief. Abraham Lincoln said, it's not a matter of God being on our side. The Confederacy says that God's on their side. The Union says God's on their side. He said, I want to be on God's side because God's always right.
For that one, that was great. Where do we go from here? There's still a lot of individuals that are not respectful to each other. And there are teachings that are coming across on media. I wouldn't tell my children to speak like that to another person. And so leaders are, to me, not really expressing the best of who they can be to set an example. What would you do? How would you talk to your kids nowadays or this generation about how to be better people when maybe they see better people have no voice anymore? And everything is about Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, wanting to be seen. And the more raunchy you are, the more likes and the more views you get. But the people who are positive and are doing good in the world, they're struggling to get 10 views. How would you tell your kids?
Just having this conversation with someone, they asked, well, where do we begin? If peace is possible, where do we begin? And I was thinking, I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to convince, folks who are already set in their perspectives. But getting back to, it might be another generation that we work with. So you mentioned young people, teaching values again. When I was coming up, we were talking about, well, why do you want to vote? I said, because my mom took me to the voting booth, and I remember we used to have those little, you go in and you pull the curtain, and, and I was at her knee watching her vote. And so, wow, that was a value. Oh, voting is important. From my family, oh, this is the way you speak to your elders. You better put a handle on that. You don't call Mary Mary. You better call her Aunt Mary, Miss Mary. And so these are values that are instilled, even if it's unconscious. It's not a purposeful thing, but it is purposeful. And unless we start with this younger generation and get back to respect, honoring people, honoring oneself, honoring your position, your body. I look at the young ladies sometimes and I want to go, oh my gosh, what happened? So I'm not so sure that I can reach this generation, but I have faith that somehow if we start again instilling it in our young people, we can move back to the era of respect, value, honesty, all of these things that were taught, but they were also lived. I learned because my family lived certain values, and that's how I learned. So I'm hopefully working on this next generation.
Zainab, are the values different in the Middle East than they are here?
It's a great question, Sister Jenna. I think the basic values are the same. Respect, dignity, being kind, honesty. There are so many values that we share as a human beings, and not only on a social level, but also on the faith level. I think all the religions calls for the same values. We probably different in terms of how we worship, but the basics are the same. Being good for all mankind, being honest, being faithful, being, respectful. We all share as a human being. The thing is, time have changed. Societies have changed. And we have a disconnect with the generation that we see now. I was talking to my daughter this morning, and I said, "So, are you gonna go vote?" Why? And she said, "No, I'm not going to." And I'm like, "Why do you waste your vote? Your voice is very important." Because I don't believe in the system, because I don't know whom do I vote for, because this, and I'm like, okay, try your best, make a decision and see the values in both and see what it represents you. I feel sometimes the young generation, they are lost in terms of what's really, and the important issues that we see it in our generations is different than what they see now. And I said it's important for a person like me who come from a society that your voice was not free to give to the one you want or to pick a person that you want to vote for. There is one person, and this is one person get 99.9. So I don't know why we were going to vote and we were being forced to go vote. And when you have things here accessible, before you have to go to the ballot, now you can do it electronically if you are traveling, and it's really easy, not like before. And we see that people do not care and do not go and practice their rights, which is very important. It's part of your beliefs. It's part of your system. It's going to be deciding the future from now until 4 years later or maybe more. And these are the things that we are seeing right now. We are missing in our community because of that disconnect. People do not associate, especially on the young generation I'm talking. They do not associate with the values of how important it is to have a voice on the table.
Is that why, as Dr. J was sharing, that there's a mistrust of the government now? And I will hear it time and time again, I don't trust our government. What do you do? Okay, so if you don't trust the government, but what do you do? How do we work with this? We've worked in companies, and there are certain colleagues at work, you don't trust them, right? But you still go to work and you still deal with what you have to deal. And I think that when the generation of the Gen Zs and maybe younger witness the game that's being played with politicians and the memes and the stories that they're consistently wanting you to believe, it does fuel distrust. That I want you to speak to me honestly. What is happening? What is it that we need to do? Rather, we're being conditioned to believe in things that are not true anymore. And it's being sold to us. And somewhere inside we know that. The second thing is, if I'm a leader of a country and I'm making decisions where my citizens see it's all just for me, they won't trust me and they will start to do all for me too. Laws are put down to protect us. And if there are no more laws, it's every man for himself. And do the citizens of this country have enough innate values to live a life of values with one another, even if we're different. I don't see it right now. So we need laws and rules and structure and a system that can somehow at least help us to continue as best as we can. That feeling, I want to get back to the feeling. It's a feeling in us as Americans that it's just, it hurts. It becomes judgmental. It gets critical. There's a comparison. Dr. J, what is that feeling? You know, you look back, okay, I know these two candidates are different. One is offering left, the other one's offering right. That's fine. Let me see, how do we do this? We've survived for hundreds of years, everybody left and right. Democrat, Republican, we're continuing. Om Shanti. But there's that feeling that has gotten much deeper than it's been in a long time. What is that feeling that we're feeling? Is it an end? Is it a new beginning? Is it the healing that Reverend Sylvia mentioned? You know what I'm talking about, everyone. There's this feeling in us when we hear it on the news. When somebody says one thing about this candidate and the other one says it about that candidate, there's that feeling like, what is the feeling that we're not getting rid of it? And whenever I touch the feeling, I feel so disempowered. And I almost wonder if that's a plan to keep feeding me negative things that I feel disempowered, that I don't know what to do. Can everyone talk? Because mics are up right now.
I think it is. Well, it's not a plan. It's the nature of society right now. There's an overload of information, and a lot of us don't know what to believe, and we've ceded our responsibility to talking heads to discern the nature and the manner in which we want to see the direction of society take. And so there's an uncertainty about what America should be and what it is right now. My father, World War II African American, lived in Florida, witnessed lynchings. He would be 104 or 5 right now. The height of Jim Crow. He, even under Ronald Reagan, he never lost hope in the promise of America. He was one of the first black podiatrists in the world, one or two, depending on what guy walked across the stage. Were 2 African Americans in his class. I forget, his last name is S, so probably he was the last one. Begins with an S, the last one. But he never lost hope. He went to medical school, podiatry school, came out, had to go work in a post office to get a loan to open an office. Before he went to work in the post office, he went to a bank to get a signature loan like all of his white classmates did. And a former German officer in the Nazi army refused him the loan. Even facing things like that, he never lost hope. The hopelessness that we experience now is because of the overload of information, having our core values questioned, not doing the work that Sister Jenna does here in this museum and Reverend Sylvia does in her church, and I'm sure you do, of calling people to go within, determine who you are, what do you want to see the world to be? How do you want to see society take shape? How do you want to help your children? Don't abdicate your responsibility. Be a parent. How do you deal with these younger generations? And I told my kids, the Speights family lives in a democracy in America, but the Speights household is not a democracy. I'm in charge here. Your mother's in charge. These values are going to be instilled until, I'll take away everything, all your toys, we've abdicated a lot of responsibility and ceded a lot of personal responsibility to other institutions and other individuals. You have to reclaim yourself, see your role in the world, see the role that you want government to play in your life, and don't be afraid to take hard positions. You can look at the direction of this election and the 2 candidates, and you can ask some fundamental questions about who you are. Remember, the questions are, what do you think about God? Where do you stand? And what do you see from where you stand? If you ask those questions, you'll have the answers, and you'll reclaim who you are, and that feeling of hopelessness and despair will probably go away. You have to work on it daily.
Think on our respect to other people's opinion. So whether you're right or left, it doesn't matter. I always say we need a right and a left wing to fly, and we need to fly. We need to fly definitely, and leave all, we need to survive together. We need to live in peace together. We need to have that connection, whether we are in this direction or the other one. So that's what I think.
Dr. J, we have abdicated our responsibility to self, and we've gotten quite comfortable, and everyone has gone inward to see how is my life going, and am I at peace? Do I have enough? Am I happy? All of that. But what living the good life has done is it has caused us to fall asleep. And I believe that many of us are asleep, but I also know that once we begin to awaken, that there's that innate quality in every living being that gravitates towards the good. Basically, human beings are good beings, and we gravitate toward the light. We gravitate toward higher values, towards love. We've fallen asleep, and what we must do is come back to ourselves, but not in a limited way, but in a more universal way. So even though I have moments where I feel, oh my gosh, what will happen to this world, I also have complete faith in the human condition, not the lowest spectrum of the human condition, which can be hate, division, all the stuff that we're seeing now. But I have faith in the upper end of the human condition, that we will support one another, we will love one another, we will help one another. If something were to happen right here, right now, God forbid, but something tragic, everybody in this room would not only look to help themselves, but there'd be something that draws us to make sure that how can we move through this collectively, this situation and circumstance. We see it when there's a tsunami or there's a hurricane or there's some natural disaster. People lay aside very easily their differences and they go back to their humanity and begin to figure out, how can I help somebody who doesn't have food, water, who's hurting, who needs to be rescued? That's innate in us. So I'm thinking we're going to get back to that. I trust that most human beings will remember. We're in the state of remembering.
Beautiful, 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 Reverend Sylvia.
So Howard Thurman said we must restore the memory of a lost harmony, and that harmony is community. There was a video on YouTube. It's called Stepping into Liquid. They took a group of Palestinian kids and Israeli kids, and they hired 2 professional surfers to take them surfing. And they romped on the waves and laughed and joked and hugged each other from sun up to sundown. So some of us are afraid to step into liquid, and that's what that film's called, Stepping into Liquid. When you step into the liquid or water, there's an unknown there. So we fear the unknown. We fear that, what if I don't have an enemy? What if I wake up tomorrow and it was only one religion? At 7 a.m., at 12 a.m., there'd be 2 religions, because we're addicted to tension and conflict.
It's such a good point.
Oh, thank you. I could come up with one every now and then.
That is so true. We are addicted to conflict. And when it is peaceful and harmonious, we don't give it much attention. We just flag it off, and that's why it's so like that right now, Yeah.
I don't know if we're addicted to conflict as much as, because the nature of life is going to have conflict in it. There's always going to be the good, the bad, the polarity, as well as a singular focus. But sometimes we think peace is the absence of conflict, and it is not. To me, peace is the ability to maneuver in the relationship in the midst of conflict. Because there'll never be a world without conflict or a relationship without conflict. I don't care if it's your mom or your spouse. I love my 96-year-old mother, but we have moments where we're just not seeing eye to eye, but I'm willing to engage her. So the conflict is a part of.
What is that part between the both of you that offers the engagement where you're still respectful and kind to each other?
It's love. It's willing to come to the
Exactly.
table. It's love.
That's what it is. You know, I've been talking to individuals on both sides of the spectrum, and I have observed that on a particular side of the spectrum, people are very, very fired up, like they're very heated when they explain to me why they're selecting that particular side. Now, here's what I have experienced for myself. I know who I'm going to select this year. And when the other individuals who are going to select someone that's not who I'm selecting, you know what I've done? And I've spoken to, I can't tell you how many. Please explain to me so I can understand. I just ask them, could you just, I think I'm missing something. Just let me know, what is it that you're seeing? And majority of the folks will tell me it's about economy. And then I'll say, I'm fine with economy, but hasn't our economy survived anyway, with or without this kind of a energy that we're witnessing? So my point is, I have allowed myself, guys, I'm allowing myself to listen. I don't agree, but the moment I catch my feelings inside, I'm getting anxious, judgment. I want to argue with them. And then I want to tell them, don't you see what's... I pull myself back. Because now I'm not being true to my value of peace. I'm meditating the vote for a reason. So I don't get caught up in negative vibration as I listen to you be different than me. I want you to think about this. Someone is telling you something completely contrasting to what you believe and what you live by. Why do you think they're telling me? I want to understand. That's all I ask. No judgment. And maybe I'm missing something. I've got one question which I think is really important for this particular panel. Zainab and myself are immigrants. We came from a different country. I came when I was a child, so I didn't have a choice, and I've been here for 50 years. And Zainab came during the Iraq War. She's raised her children here. I think it's safe for us to say we know how powerful this country is and what it does for your life if you work hard. We know it. We've lived it. My family has lived it. I was somewhere where it was a culture of individuals who believe more so in their color, their coloring, and my color was different for them to look at. And you could see from the energy when they looked and spoke to me in my garb. And I remember just standing there in the queue about to get cashed out. And I looked at this man and I knew he was born here and I knew he was raised here in a particular ideology. And I said, I don't know if anyone ever told you this, but I just want to thank you. I have loved living in America. I promise you I'll bring the best to it. Because I knew where he belonged and I knew what he thought, foreigners, immigrants. And I knew when I looked at him, I meant it. Thank you. I promise you, I will always contribute to this country. I just wanted to let you know, I'm just grateful. Because I know they're a Native American. And sometimes what I'm careful about is as immigrants, we kind of act like, this is my country too, and I did, and we're like, I get it. But you have to also consider the feelings of those who were born here and who have a different color. And how do we respond to that? And I think I'd like to ask Reverend Sylvia and Dr. J, you're Native Americans, and you've seen a lot of other people come into the country. How do you feel about us being here? What are your thoughts when you see the way we dress different and talk with a little nice accent? And, you know, we wear something over our head because we're so beautiful. You don't want to see how beautiful we are, so we put on these scarves. And, you know, like, how do you feel when you see such diversity in the country that you're born in?
That's an interesting question to ask I think, an African American, because even though I'm born in this country, I've never, or I don't know if I want to speak for my entire race, but we have not necessarily enjoyed the freedoms and the rights of those in the majority or the dominant culture. And so I would probably have a tendency to relate to the immigrant who's trying to come in and find their place. We were brought here, and we're still trying to find our place, not find our place, but to claim and accept our place, and to have others, recognize that we want and deserve a seat at the table. And so because of that, I think we're more open to diversity, diverse ideas, acceptance, tolerance, understanding, because that is what we seek and want and desire for ourselves. And that is what we offer others too.
There's a duality that comes with being African American. Are you fully American, or are you something else? And that's still a dilemma for us to find our identity, our American identity. And that's going to go on for some time. But when I see immigrants come in, there's a question that I have. Are you coming in with the perspective of the majority, that the majority of Americans hold about African Americans? Or are you seeing us as somebody that's in a common struggle with you? And a lot of immigrants that come into this country with the perspective and perception of the majority. And if they look at the black members of Congress, they consistently vote for opening the borders and increasing quotas. And then a lot of the immigrants that come in don't support those issues about African Americans. I have a lot of Latino friends, but I guess, my wife is Latino. But we get into these conversations about undocumented workers, and how could I take a position against some of those policies that allow people to come across the border? And I ask those people in return, do you have it, or have you ever spoken up for African American rights? Did you come here with an awareness of our struggle? And this all goes back to what Reverend Sylvia was saying. We have to see the humanity and see ourselves. How can you want something for yourself that you don't want for somebody else? Yeah, so I'll leave it with that statement.
Thank you for both comments. Actually, I've been on. I just want to say one story. I've been on TV a lot in the past 2 months or so because of the election and because of what's going on in the Middle East and the conflict and so on. So last week I was on BBC, and they were talking about Muslim votes in America, and where do Muslim votes go to, and whom. And so I put a post on my Facebook on that, and I immediately get that a question is that, how are you going to vote? From a friend who used to be, I met her in Iraq in 2004 or 5, and she was a soldier. And I said, just like any other American. And she's like, I didn't expect that answer. What answer do you expect to have? And I spoke about the diversity within the Muslim community in terms of whom they are going to vote for. I did not express my opinion about whom I'm going to vote for. And this is the thing. We always assume certain things about other people or other people from other backgrounds, but we rarely invest to know who these people are and what their thoughts are and what their contribution to this place or to this country is.
Wow, are you all enjoying the conversation? It's very rich, no? I've always wanted to engage in conversations like this more and more to help to bring the country together, because I think if we create a safe space to dialogue, even though our views are different, we really are Americans. And that's what American offers. What's our solution in these times?
Keep coming to the table, keep showing up. You know, we have to have that willingness. Keep posing the questions and supporting each other as we go through the difficult and challenging times.
Respect, believe in other people's opinions. You don't have to believe in their, their faith or anything like that, but respect what they believe in. Respect their ideas, their thoughts, and have a value and invest in the time to know other people better.
I would say do your work. Do your inner work. Be vigilant about that. Be vigilant about how you receive information and what you do with it. Form your own opinions. Don't cede the responsibility of getting information about the direction of society to someone else. Do your research. And don't be afraid, as I said earlier, step into liquid, step into the unknown. Trust that somebody, or in the form of the other, will meet you there. And the more people that step into the liquid, step into the unknown, and are stretched beyond their comfort levels, the more people will look at you as an example of those people, and they'll follow. You got to be brave. Be brave.
Thank you.
Left wing, right wing, I think we need one wing, like to be one bomber, just one solid wing. That's the problem. If you say red, I say blue. If you say gay, I say straight. If you say rich, I say poor. One wing. Acknowledge we're one country. We should be one people. There can be a discourse, a healthy discourse over what we want to see America be. I was listening to this African elder statesman, and he said two dwarfs were having an argument about who was tallest. You get that? So, and I think the two parties have dwarfed themselves by this knee-jerk reaction to what the other says. Instead of, again, what is best? And we can both have a position about what's best, but where is the common ground? And I think when I worked on Capitol Hill, that was the case. I admired a lot of those men, the Speaker of the House. We had Tip O'Neill, we had Jim Wright, we had the majority leaders, but they worked together, even under Reagan with the Democratic Congress. They worked together and they came out with something. And it was amazing for me to see that, because I feared Ronald Reagan's election. But it was amazing to see the output of government at that time. They came up with some, not all fair policies, but things that didn't threaten our core values or America as we know it.
It's a value that we can teach our young people, how to collaborate, how to cooperate, how to be in community. But also what I see is happening is this individual, it's right now we're trying to move into the power of the collective to understand that we are stronger together, as opposed to at some point in time, we needed to have this individualistic approach to life. Let me get mine, let me build mine. That was fine. It helped us to grow. But we're moving into a different stage now, whereas the planet is getting smaller and smaller. So if we don't coalesce into understanding we are one, as opposed to all these different verses, then we're going to run into what we're running into now, which is this sense of, well, I better be top dog. So it's all about power. I want to stay in power. I want to get the power. If I get the power, you won't have the power. As opposed to understanding that we have to disperse all of the power. Everyone's powerful. And so I think we can teach that. Again, it's getting back to helping young people to create the world they want.
I really want to take this time to thank everyone. I feel that we just touched the tip of the iceberg this afternoon. And I think the Meditate the Vote is about the respect that you could see that we hold for each other, despite whatever our differences might be in culture, race, or gender, what have you. And that's why when we meditate, we somehow tap into the goodness that Reverend Sylvia mentioned. And we can reach to the point of the left and the right can keep us in flight until perhaps we get to the oneness that we all carry as individuals. And that's what the Meditate the Vote whole agenda and initiative is about. In the idea of this concept, we have different questions that we throw out there to you. Are you powerful enough to impact change? How do you model your self-worth in the country? These are just some of the few questions on the meditatethevote.org site that will help you to engage these conversations with your family and friends. Instead of, did you hear what he said yesterday about this one? Did you hear what she said? Ask the right questions in the community and build that vibration up. I don't really have to wait for a leader to determine my life. I have to do that for me. And I don't feel it's fair for us to judge the candidates when the candidates are representing the consciousness of the country. So there's a saying that as is the king, so are the subjects. And so what we're witnessing is that in the United States of America, we could have been living like this for so long and not knowing that there were individuals in our family, which is America, America's our home, and you are my family, that I didn't know that there were members in my family that were hurt so deeply. And they're hurt on both sides. And so it does come to what is the healing for America now? And perhaps that's why we're going through what we're going through. That it is time for healing, and it's time for us to have these conversations that we can use more common sense in these moments and in this climate to somehow bring, to me, my agenda. I want America to be the shining star for the world, you know, and I do that by being a very respectful person, and I do that by carrying myself respectfully, and I do that by having friends that are diverse in my life, and I do that by being open to hearing people's opinions that I don't necessarily agree with, you know, and that has helped me to contribute more to the country. So here's what I want to leave everyone with. In your mind, as we sit in prayer for the country and for our own lives, what's your contribution to America to make it keep shining? What is your contribution? Because if you sit on your phone and go through everything Vice President Kamala Harris or Donald Trump say, and then you just keep spinning it and playing it back, you're going to get disempowered. You already know what the two candidates stand for. There's no more trying to figure out who is who. We have experience of both of them. So then you choose. So the time you spend going through everything that they're saying, use that time to empower yourself to see what you can contribute to the country. This is my ask. And in closing remarks, I'd like to ask everyone on the panel if you can close off with a prayer for the country. And Zainab, if it's okay with you, I wouldn't mind if you did it in Arabic, so that I know the feelings out there. And for those who are Muslims or who are from the Middle East or who sway to that understanding, I want them to also feel her prayer through her mother tongue. And if Reverend Sylvia and Dr. J, if we just close off with a prayer within us for the country. I think I can start off with you, Jay. And
we ask the divine creative source of all life, all knowing and all giving, to descend upon the consciousness of America, to open our minds and hearts to goodness, to the promise of what this country has stated it is and what it can still be. We ask that we walk a path of peace and encounter those not as the other, but as a brother or a sister. And let us not put our needs above the needs of others. Let us put our needs in a common bowl, that we recognize that we all drink from one cup and we eat from one pot. And it is this great, beautiful green planet that you have given us stewardship over. And that we take all of our collective energy and we build the beloved community in the kingdom of God, where every child, every man, and every woman can achieve their purpose using their gifts and stand securely on the ground in your full personhood. To this I say thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. صدق الله العظيم. اللهم أعطنا القوة والسداد، وساعدنا على أن نتخطى أخطاءنا وننفع بعضنا البعض ونسامح ونتقرب حتى نكون تحت سمائك وعرشك، حتى نكون نحترم بعضنا بعض ونقدر بعضنا بعض ونعامل بعضنا بعض على مبدأ الإنسانية والتفاهم، وإننا بشر تحت رحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين، أن نحترم بعضنا وآراءنا واختلافاتنا. اللهم ساعدنا على تخطي الصعاب، وساعدنا في أخذ قرارنا الصحيح في كل يوم وفي كل مكان. اللهم لك الحمد على نعمك وعلى عطائك وعلى هداياك لنا. اللهم أنعمنا بالتفاهم فيما بيننا وبين بعض، وإزالة الحواجز التي تمنعنا من جعلنا أمة واحدة تستفاد من بعضها البعض وتقدر بعضها البعض وتقدر الإيمان والأديان المختلفة. اللهم لك الحمد، وساعدنا يا رب في أيامنا المقبلة، إنك أرحم الراحمين.
O beloved Creator of all that is good, that divine essence that indwells each living soul, we ask that we come into this gathering, into this divine moment, this appointed time, with open hearts, open minds, that the greater good shall be revealed, and that all may experience the presence of the divine with all the wonderful qualities of being. May this great nation truly be, as Sister Jenna said, the shining light, for we each are the light that lights the world. And so may every soul now come with the higher purpose of doing the greatest good for all concerned. May this country truly be blessed as we shall endeavor to be a blessing, not simply for ourselves, but for the beloved other, the sacred other. And so we give thanks for peace, peace that passes through all understanding and all misunderstanding. May the peace of God that dwells within every heart now be revealed upon this planet and in our nation as we go forth to select our leader, which is also the leader within each of us. And so we're grateful for the blessings, for this opportunity, for the privilege of being awake and conscious with an open heart. And for these and greater blessings, we say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is.
Meditating the vote at this time. So we go to God and simply ask Him at the polls, what does love want me to do here? And there is something very powerful about love, because it accepts all. And as we move into these next few days and beyond, when you have conversations with individuals that have different views than you do, different values, just go inside of the soul. Experience your light, that immortal, eternal, imperishable being, the soul. And at that moment, you can feel God's presence and simply ask, what does love want me to do right now? The right answer will always flow. And so the more we bring this energy of love into our decisions, we will trust the future will be always bright. So right now I ask you to emerge these two candidates in your mind, and from the depths of your heart, share God's love to both of them equally. Equally. No resistance. Each of these souls are playing their accurate part in this unlimited drama. Send them your love. Send them your good wishes. And wish them well in their future role that is monumental, and will take everything that they have to offer to be of service to this country and the world at large. Just give the both of them your blessings, because that's what God would do. Take a deep breath in and out. Thank you all so much. And what I'm inviting you to do when you wake up in the morning, give your blessings to these souls, to both of them, to both of them. Because if we're going to heal, we're going to have to heal also what we're feeling. And so we give blessings to both, and we wish for the best. And we must keep checking ourselves that we're not also going on the side of the hate that we might talk about around the dinner table. And that's why I say, give blessings to both sides so that your spirit is clean. And so whatever the outcome will be, I will be there to contribute to this country. You know what I'm saying? Okay? All right.